Please join me in welcoming to the Distinctive Voices podium, Dr. Xuan Zhao.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. My name is Xuan Zhao. I'm a social psychologist and also co-founder and CEO of Flourish Science. It's such an incredible honor to be here as a junior scientist and talk about my research and some recent adventures I've been taking on. So today, I want to start by sharing a bit about the story behind my academic journey. I started as a PhD student at Brown, so I've always been fascinated about how we connect with each other and how we oftentimes do not connect with each other. So specifically in my dissertation, I looked at perspective taking. This is the idea that because I have my own body, I see the world from my unique vantage point, and that means that I will have a different perspective from another person. But somehow we can actually manage to take each other's perspectives and arrive on the same page, and sometimes, right? So I try to understand when do we take other people's perspectives, and I even had fun studying whether people take robots' perspectives. And the conclusion was that if the robot looks more human-like, we are also more likely to take the robot's perspective. So that was a fun detour in my research about social connection and social interaction. So when I was a PhD student, I also realized that the limitation of studying social interactions in the lab. So I decided to actually venture out to some other classes, such as taking acting class at Brown and also anthropology class. And these classes really supported by my very open-minded PhD advisor, Bertram Mallet. If Bertram, you ever watch this, thank you so much. You changed my life. There I have really got to appreciate the more contextual, the more situated aspect of social interaction, which laid the foundation of lots of things I do later. After I, actually during my PhD, I also learned, some acting, as I mentioned, and decided to teach my own class on leadership and empathy at Brown Leadership Institute. And that also, this kind of experience also led me to land my postdoc position, my dream position at Chicago Booth, where I got to work with the Second City. For those of you who don't know, the Second City is an improv club, and they also have a kind of executive training arm. So there we decided we have an innovative initiative, brainchild of Heather Crusoe. So we decided to combine behavioral science with improv to create active listening and inclusion workshops to really help people get this kind of experiential learning experience. And it also helped me land my dream job after my postdoc, a research scientist at Stanford Spark. So Spark, we call Spark a do tank instead of a think tank, because we actually roll up our sleeves and design and implement and measure interventions in the field with change makers and policy makers. So for example, we have projects on police stops with police departments in Oakland. We have collaboration with the Nextdoor to understand how we can better design moderator training for Nextdoor, volunteer moderators, etc. So these kind of real-world impact projects is really inspired by both our leadership, Hazel Marcus, Jennifer Eberhard, and Mariam Hamadani, and also Lee Ross, who has been a very influential figure in social psychology. He said that we need to get more of the world into our science and more of our science into the world. That has been a huge inspiration for me and also inspired me creating Flourish Science, a public benefit startup focusing on well-being and human flourishing. So that has been my journey, and as you can see, I've taken many small turns and unconventional choices, from studying human-robot interaction to improv to building a startup. But really, I think this quote has set the tone throughout this whole journey, which I want to share with you today. Too often, we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. So today we gather here in person, online, to talk about what it means to live a good, flourishing life and how to flourish together. I want to thank you for showing up to this really important and urgent topic. So because we are living in very interesting times with some really interesting, puzzling paradoxes. So paradox number one. Over the past 2 decades, happiness in the US has been declining. Somehow, even though we have more money, more stuff, and even longer lives, we are feeling less happy. This graph from General Social Survey stops in 2018. You can see this declining pattern, but we know that the pandemic did not make people happier. So there could be many reasons behind this pattern, such as rising inequality in our society, but many scholars have also argued that the hyperconnected digital life might have created a negative impact on our happiness and well-being. That leads us to the second factor, that is, we are now in a loneliness epidemic, even though everyone is just one click away. In May 2023, the US Surgeon General issued an advisory declaring that we are entering an epidemic of loneliness and social isolation. And what is really important is that this kind of started before the pandemic. So according to a 2019 survey by Cigna, about 61% of Americans report sometimes or always feel lonely, and that's 61%. And what's even more surprising is that younger people feel lonelier than older people. Well, that's bad news because according to research, lack of social connection doesn't just feel bad, it's actually bad for our physical health. For example, this widely discussed study has compared the danger of isolation to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And loneliness, but one difference between loneliness and smoking cigarette is that at least we now know how harmful cigarettes are, so the packages are legally required to say something on the say something like "this may kill you." But the problem of loneliness is it doesn't come with a warning sign, and oftentimes we don't even recognize what is happening. When we feel maybe lonely or isolated, we reach out to the phone. We really nip this feeling in the bud. We don't take a moment to actually, even recognize, pay attention to it. So recently I was at Stanford dining hall, and I saw that every single student who was eating alone was scrolling on their phone. And I'm guessing some people might be reading papers, but judging by the hand gesture, most people are probably just checking out social media. So that is the kind of problem that we are facing right now. I think Stephen Colbert summarized this really well and with Sherry Turkle in this conversation. So Stephen said, doesn't all these little tweets, these little snippets, the little sips of online connection add up to one big gulp of real conversations? And Sherry Turkle, who wrote, MIT professor and author of Alone Together, she just responded, no, they don't. And that's the kind of challenges we are facing. It's really hard to imagine that hundreds of millions of Americans are smoking 15 cigarettes a day, but metaphorically, that might be what is happening in our society right now. Well, this warrants attention because social connection are vital for well-being, and decades of research have shown that once and again. One of the most famous studies is the Harvard study of adult development. This suggests, so more than 80 years ago, researchers at Harvard decided to recruit hundreds of participants in the Boston area to study this really important question: what makes a good life? So they enlisted, these people who agreed to take a wide range of interviews, questionnaires, and extensive physiological measures. So the study found that strong social relationships was the single biggest predictor of happiness and life satisfaction, and it can even predict, long and happy lives better than social class or wealth or fame or IQ or even genes. And strong relationships can even predict physical health, longevity, and financial success too. So we should know that participants in this study are all men in Boston, but later there have been many other studies replicating this kind of finding with different population. This is only because we are all social animals. Humans are born to be social animals. We all want to be seen, be heard, be appreciated for who we are, and feel that we belong somewhere. Recently, this post went viral on LinkedIn that says, "We are not machines. We need rest, we need time, we need space, we need love, we need laughter, and perhaps most importantly, we need each other." I think this perfectly captures what scholars have been arguing recently, that over the past few decades, the way we did self-care is all wrong. Because instead of focusing on self-care, what we really should focus, what organizational leaders should focus on is building a culture where people can support each other, can be vulnerable with each other, and can really care and take care of each other. So why aren't we doing that more often? So this is a really, really important question. Next, I want to transition a little bit to the knowledge part to discuss maybe a few reasons why we aren't quite there yet. So I want to start with this quote because it suggests that maybe we have some blind spots in our cognition about what we can do and the power of our actions. So to find out whether we underestimate the positive impact of our words and actions on other people, in 2017, I went to Chicago booth where I met Nicholas Apley, who shared my passion for studying social interaction. So we both wondered if people underestimate, the kind of social connection, the power of social connection for their well-being and each other's well-being. So we specifically focused on giving compliments to start with, because compliments obviously are very powerful. It's free to give a compliment. It can brighten another person's day immediately, and also it can even activate the kind of neural circuit like receiving cash. There is some neuroimaging study suggesting that it's as powerful as receiving a little sum of money. So curious though, most of us also have this kind of experience there where we notice really nice things about another person and we don't tell them about it. We really hold back from giving that sincere, genuine compliment. So why is that the case? We decided to study this, and since we were in Chicago, we didn't want to study college students, so we decided to go into the public space. Here is Garfield Park. It's very nice indoor, so Chicago is very cold for half of the year, but this is a perfect spot to run studies all year round. So we set up our study there. We recruited pairs of family or friends who were visiting the park, and we randomly assigned those pairs to be either in a complement condition or in a control condition. So in the complement condition, we randomly assigned one person to be the compliment giver. While they were asked to write down, in one study, they were asked to write down 3 compliments. For example, this person wrote these 3 compliments. Your smile is so contagious. You are very conscientious. You have good fashion sense, particularly in your choices of socks. So after writing the compliments, we asked these people to predict how they think the recipient would feel when they read the compliments. And then we showed the compliments, actually, I should say on an iPad, to the recipient. And they read the compliments, and they reported how they actually felt. Very importantly, those people have known each other for, on average, 10 years, so you would think that they know how each other feel and think very well. But what we discovered was that compliment givers systematically underestimated how happy their recipients were after receiving the compliments. And by contrast, in the control condition, when there was no compliment giving or receiving, and they were just predicting how happy the other person was in the park, they were pretty, the people who were making the predictions were pretty accurate. So comparing the red bars, you can see that receiving a compliment definitely gave the recipients a happiness boost. But comparing the gray bars show that the compliment givers had very little insights on the kind of positive impact they were going to make with their words. So why is that the case, we wondered. One mechanism we focused on is that perhaps givers and receivers of compliments, they naturally focus on different aspects of compliments. So the givers, they are focusing more on how do I give this compliment? What words do I choose? Am I saying it right? But the recipients, they are focusing more on the warmth and the kindness of the compliments, and that is what receiving a compliment is about. It's a warm gesture from another person. And with that, so we had other studies to test this hypothesis, and we found that when we ask the compliment givers to focus on how warm and sincere their compliments are, they indeed were more calibrated in their expectation on how the recipients would feel, so supporting this hypothesis. And then you might wonder, why do we care? Why is this kind of knowledge important? So we thought that maybe with this kind of knowledge, we can also encourage people to give more compliments more often when they have nice things to say to each other. So to test this idea, we went back to the Garfield Park, and we recruited pairs of friends or family again. And this time, we asked the compliment giver to write, as many compliments as you want, or as few, as many or as few as you want. But one catch is half of them also learned that told them people tend to underestimate the positive impact of their compliments. So that's what we found in the past. And the other half, that's the informed condition, learned about that finding. The uninformed condition, we told them that we ran this study about giving compliments. We didn't tell them what we found. And then we look at how many compliments they wrote in the study. And it turns out that the informed condition, compliment givers on average wrote one more compliment in our study. So although not every compliment is life-changing, one compliment seems to be not a whole lot, we also know that happiness oftentimes comes from the accumulation of seemingly small things in daily life. So we really think that knowing that our compliments actually can mean more than we tend to assume can also inspire people to take their action in a more positive direction. So we wrote up this research after publishing this paper. I teamed up with colleagues at Cornell, Erica Boothby, and also Vanessa Bones, who studied giving compliments among strangers. So we wrote up this article in Harvard Business Review, especially to encourage organizations to pay more attention to this kind of micro moments of connections. And recent interview with Dr. Laurie Santos on her podcast, Happiness Lab. By the way, how many people here listen to Laurie Santos' Happiness Lab podcast? Awesome. Have at least one fan. So it's a wonderful podcast. So recently we discussed this line of research, and I shared more stories behind it. So one story I shared on the podcast was that actually the reason why I did this study was I was trying to kind of prove this point to my then boyfriend, because he wasn't giving me compliments, and and now he's we are happily married. So he got the lesson, and it worked. So that's one. If you feel that you wish that a significant other gives you more compliments, you might gently direct them to this study. So that's one story. Well, another story that not all stories have happy endings, though. I also shared another story where, we after we finished this line of research, I presented this at different conferences, and oftentimes people ask the question like, is it possible that people give too many compliments? And would that inflate your compliments, right? The value of your compliments would decrease if you give too many compliments. And we thought that no, that's not the case, because feeling that other people appreciate you it's kind of important, like drinking water and having food. It's like a feeling that we are appreciated and seen by other people. It's a fundamental human need. So we thought that, okay, let's design this study. So we created a study paradigm that we called the compliment calendars. So the idea is that we recruited pairs of people, this time in a cafe, friends hanging out in a cafe. So we asked one friend to write down 5 compliments, and we store them in our database. And over the next 5 days, every day we would send one compliment to the recipient. So we asked the compliment writer, we asked them to predict how the person would feel when they received each compliment. And we asked other people, describe the situation and ask them to predict how the recipient would feel. So people have this kind of lay intuition that if you keep giving compliments every day, the recipient would feel less and less, happy. I mean, they're still happy, always happy, but they will not be as happy as on the first day. But when we actually showed the compliments to the recipients, as you can imagine, actually the recipient was equally happy every day when they got a new compliment. So when I was running the study, I was also monitoring the comments we got from the survey, and I remember on the second day of the study, I got a really interesting comment saying that I'm praying for my friend. She's in a hospital. I just received her compliment today. It makes me really miss her. And on that Saturday, so after 5 days, we conclude the study. We have one big final survey, and she said that I don't know if my data is qualified to be in your study because my friend, you see, she got into a traffic accident on Tuesday, and she passed away on Thursday. So, so we did end up excluding that pair's data. We actually have a footnote in that paper, but we also reach out to that person, which I never do in my research. Otherwise, you shouldn't really reach out to participants. But we did have their emails. I just sent my condolences. And she said that, thank you for providing me a chance to still hear from her, even though I lost her. That really made me think that, sometimes we feel that our words don't matter because it's transient. When the words leave your lips, they kind of disappear. But the reality is oftentimes, these words can outlive ourselves. So that really made me rethink the power of words even more so than I had before. And one thing that also I did as a result of thinking a lot more about compliments is that, we could also have objects that really remind people of the power of words, because apparently when you have a card that says have a compliment, you will see it, and then it's always there. So that it's not words just evaporate into thin air or. So that's why, so Tianyi, she's my co-founder on this journey, Flourish Science. We created a compliment card, so I trust that everyone got your compliment card. And we really want to create a vehicle to kind of convey this knowledge and encourage people to take the action. So on the front side, we have compliments, and on the back side, we have a little bit of science about why it's really important to give compliments. And we kind of think about this as chain of kindness or chain of compliments. Thank you for, I saw you took a look at your compliment card. So we really hope that this can be a physical reminder for people to actually take these small actions. There is a study that I really like from Harvard professor Todd Rogers. He has found that surprisingly, physical objects can remind us to take those well-intended actions even more so than digital reminders. And oftentimes we don't really appreciate that, so that's why we created physical objects to really remind people of the importance of these actions. So, that was the research on giving compliments. Now I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit to talk about the next set of studies. So when we are giving compliments or expressing gratitude, we are on the giving end. So we have this tremendous impact on other people. And sometimes we need to be on the receiving end of other people's kindness. So this is, for example, when we need help. Asking help can apparently unlock a moment of kindness, but oftentimes we struggle to reach out and ask for help. So without a request, unfortunately, oftentimes those who are able to provide help do not know that someone is struggling, or whether it's their position to offer help, or what's the best way to offer help. So really asking other people for help can remove the uncertainty of the situation and enable this moment of kindness and connection. So we all know that people sometimes struggle to ask for help. So Nick Apley and I, again, decided to study why that's the case and how, what could be the barrier and how can we help people to encourage, to overcome it. So we hypothesized that oftentimes we underestimate the positive impact or the positive experience of helping other people. So when you need to ask other people for help, you are thinking about, I don't want to burden them, to bother them. But actually, there is a lot of research suggesting that people are remarkably pro-social and collaborative, and that helping not only benefits the help seeker, but it can actually create positive emotions and greater life satisfaction in the helpers. So helping makes people feel happy. But despite all the benefits and to helpers and help seekers, people often struggle to ask for help. And I think one example that shows people's unwillingness to ask other people for help is taking selfies. Instead of asking other people, visitors around you to help you, we have invented this. So, so the desire to asking other people for help, really, I don't see people using selfie sticks anymore. I wonder if, it's it's a silly thing. Of course, the reluctance of asking for help is not just about transforming your vacation photos into an album of headshots. That's not just what this is. Research has shown that help seeking also benefits people's physical and mental health, and it improves individual and team performance. So there is actual important consequence if we don't reach out for help. So why aren't we reaching out for help? There might be several reasons. The researchers suggest that oftentimes some people assume that by asking for help, it's admitting that I'm weak or inferior or incompetent, and that could threaten people's self-image. So that's certainly one possibility, although there's research suggesting that actually, and also people say this often, is that asking for help is a sign of strength, it's a sign of competence. And there is also research suggesting that people underestimate how capable other people perceive them to be when they ask other people for help. So people mistakenly assume that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And there's other research about our fear for rejection, that we don't want to be rejected. And Vanessa Bones has found that actually we totally overestimate how likely we are to be rejected when we reach out to other people for help. But we want to push this further and say that we actually also underestimate the positive impact, the positive experience of offering help, and underestimate how willing other people are to help, and overestimate how inconvenienced other people feel. So to find out, we decided to go back to Garfield Park. I guess there's one big indoor park in Chicago. We keep going back there to run studies. So right past the entrance, you can see this is a beautiful, beautiful pond. People like taking pictures there. So visitors, oftentimes they try to take selfies, but you see this view is very expensive. It's really hard to take all of this in with a selfie. So we thought, okay, it's a perfect opportunity to study help seeking. So we decided to set up a phone kind of station there. We got this, what is it called? Polaroid. We got this Polaroid, and then we have this sign that says get a free instant photo. But the catch is there, you have to ask another person to take a Polaroid photo for you. And we all even show, how nice the picture would be if you ask another person to ask for help. So we really, really got people interested in the study. They want a Polaroid photo for free. So what we did was, once someone shows up and at our booth, we give them the Polaroid. But before that, we actually ask them to predict what would happen if they ask another stranger in the park to help them take a picture. So they made predictions at time 1, and then we gave them the Polaroid, and then they can find someone in the park and ask that person to take a photo for this person. And usually that person beams with a smile, and then they was like, of course, yes. And then they took the photo at this scenic spot, take the photo, and the helper was ready to leave. And our experimenter has been observing this interaction. At this moment, the experimenter shows up and stops at helper and gives that person a 1-minute survey, asking them to, we are studying social interaction in the park. We see that you just had a social interaction in the park. I want to ask you a few quick questions. So basically ask them how they was feeling right after the interaction and how inconvenienced they felt about helping another person taking a photo. So what we found was that, first of all, requesters, they significantly underestimated how willing the helpers were to take a photo for them. And they also underestimated significantly how positive the person reported feeling afterwards. And also supporting our hypothesis, they 6 times more overestimated how inconvenienced the helper were when taking the photo. So basically, you can see that the red bar is like the helper was like, no, I didn't feel inconvenienced at all. But but that's like people, the help requesters suspected that they would feel a little bit inconvenienced. Another really interesting pattern was that the requesters, they reported feeling more indebted than the helpers predicted they would feel. So basically, we think it's also because they feel that they just imposed their needs on another person, so they feel really indebted. But the helpers felt that, no, that was nothing. There's nothing to feel indebted for. So that's what we found in this study. Of course, this is a really happy study. Taking a Polaroid photo is really happy. We had other studies, less exciting scenarios set up, and we replicated this finding too. So this is a pattern pretty consistent across different studies. So that's so when the research was published, we got a lot of press interest, media interest, and this is one article published in New York Times about why you should go ahead and ask for help. And I guess I was thinking about why this paper got really a lot of interest, and also on Science Friday, I heard that's how I got on the radar of National Academy of Sciences, which is again just incredibly flattering. So presumably we think it's because this resonates with lots of people, because we all have these times when we need help from other people, and this really is a struggle many of us share. I also been reading the comments on this article, and I saw this comment last month that I thought was really interesting. So this comment says, I do think people like to be needed and to feel useful, because most days we go through life not making much of a difference, but when you help, you are making a difference, and that feels good. I feel this is both beautiful and kind of sad. I don't know. Like I fully understand the feeling that you are living your life most days not making a big difference. So, but I also wonder if that has to be the case. So that has been something else I've been thinking a lot recently about, how we can have more days in our lives that matter. That's a question that motivated me to create Flourish. So that's a story coming later. Another really interesting thing after this paper was published is that lots of the questions touch on mental health, seeking mental health help. So the study wasn't about asking for mental health help, but I suspect in this article in Mental, it's a wonderful article. I recommend, especially if you know someone who might be struggling. So even though we didn't study requests on mental health help, other researchers have found that rather than trying to bottle things up and tough it out, people who decide to disclose their mental health struggles to close others often reported feeling reported feeling positive outcomes, such as increased social support and a greater sense of connectedness, especially when the listener is more empathic and responsive. So by seeking help when needed and offering help when other people are struggling, I think we can help to create a healthier and more connected society. Well, there is only one caveat with this rosy picture. We are the product of our environment. To be vulnerable and to help each other, we also need to be in an environment where we are encouraged to support each other. So coming back to the beginning of this talk about living in a hyper-connected society, this may not be easy when we are surrounded by this kind of, a culture of social isolation. So it's especially, for example, when we focus on social media and when we focus on the number of friends and followers you have, we may have lost sight of the care and attention that is required to cultivate the quality of our social connectedness. So how can we change this? In the last part of my talk, I want to turn to actions. Especially daily actions that can help us flourish. So this is really what motivated me to create Flourish Science, and our slogan is Deeper Connections, Happier Days. When I think about mental health and well-being over the past few decades, I start to recognize this. I think there is a trend going on. So we are entering, in my view, a third wave of well-being solutions. So the first wave, the first generation has been focusing on mental health struggles, about alleviating human suffering and treating mental illness. This is usually after crisis has happened and we need intervention. But the second generation over the past 10 years or so has been emphasizing, self-care. More than 10 years has been emphasizing self-care and meditation and mindfulness, and really emphasize stress reduction. But oftentimes these kind of solutions kind of play down the importance of social connection. When you close your eyes and breathe, certainly very important, but the importance of social connection is not really emphasized, especially taking actions. I know a lot of compassion meditation. I'm more thinking about taking actions to really express that verbally. So this third generation of well-being solutions that we are witnessing now, I've seen a lot of recent startups that focus on well-being as a social experience and as a collective movement. So as societal awareness of mental health and well-being continues to grow, I really hope that we are continuing this trend into this direction that's more proactive, more personalized, and more interdependent. So thinking about how we can, how we as researchers can help. So I've been noticing that there is a lot of research recently, a wealth of research on how we can live happier days and more connected days. But with this large literature, the challenge is that they often have a difficult time reaching people, and people also struggle to understand how to incorporate this kind of knowledge in daily life, and also to motivate themselves to continue engaging in these behaviors. So this is what we call the last mile problem of science. So I want to really solve this problem. I think it's a really exciting challenge. So this is how I've been summarizing a new way to think about well-being, taking a multi-level approach. So I propose that we need this thinking about well-being on different levels. So starting from cognition, recognizing the importance of small, consistent actions, the impact on our own well-being and on other people's well-being. And the second part is about the connection, about the meaningful actions we can take to connect both online and in real life. And then importantly, we also want to create communities and strengthen the existing communities, the connective tissues in our current communities, to really create a supportive environment and greater belonging. And finally, ultimately, we want to change the culture, the conversations in our society. So with that knowledge, coming back to this wealth of literature on the individual and the interpersonal level, I kind of categorize the different actions people can take into three buckets. The first one is kind of connecting activities, for example, giving a compliment or having a meaningful, deep conversation. So these really help people to feel a sense of connection with each other. And the next bucket is what I would call savoring activities. So these are like three good things, reflect on three things, big and small, in your life that really brightens your day, puts a smile on your face, or taking a nature walk. So these actually help us to feel more grounded, more present. But if you think about, you can also add a social twist to it. For example, when you have your three good things, you can share it with another person. And this can create what social psychologist Barbara Fredrickson calls positivity resonance. So the idea that you have three good things and another person has three good things, and you talk about your three good things, you have six good things. So this kind of positivity resonance can amplify our well-being too. And finally, another bucket is aspiring activities about meaning and purpose, about, for example, writing a letter from your future self and discover the wisdom that's already within you, or imagine being your best possible self. So these are, I hope, a more systematic view to think about the different research studies we've found and different actions we can take. And then going beyond, the different individual studies, when we are working on Flourish, we really try to help people create habit, because we often say that, motivation, knowledge. I'm blanking on the saying. Is essentially knowledge is what gets you started, but habit is what keeps you going. So we have created the toolkit is free to actually help people learn and practice these activities. We share the science. What does the science say? And we help people, guide people through the different activities. We also create an activity card at the end and help people reflect on this experience to recognize the value of practicing these small actions. We even allow people to, you find your Flourish buddies, which we think is a really important aspect of living a Flourish life. And really, you can share these highlights with your Flourish buddies for more positivity resonance. We have been sourcing different activities and put them into a toolkit, and can help people really help them find their personal fit and help using the Flourishing scale from at dinner to help people understand their well-being and track the well-being change over time. So I recognize that I've been talking about, building an app. And at the beginning, I talked about loneliness epidemic. So one thing I firmly believe is if you want to solve the loneliness epidemic, an app is far from enough. So then at Flourish, we often think about ourselves as essentially ultimately creating a movement, a Flourish movement, where we can help communities to rebuild the connective tissues with these simple daily actions. So one example is I feel incredibly lucky to meet visionary organizational leader who resonate with our solution. So for example, with Stanford Office of Development, we recently launched a Flourish Together campaign. So in the spring, and we are launching the Happy World Kindness Day campaign next Monday. So next Monday, by the way, is World Kindness Day. So maybe it's a good time to give your compliment. So with this, we create this what we call Flourish Station. And the idea is really simple. There's, lots of the offices nowadays, they have micro kitchens. So employees go there, they get food, they get drink, so that the food and drink really fuels their bodies. But we thought, why don't we also have something to fuel their mind and their hearts and really help encourage this kind of small actions? And there's wonderful research from this our psychology department suggesting that people actually kind of infer the inclusivity of the environment based on objects in an office. So by having these kind of small objects that can really encourage people to be kind to each other, people infer the culture in this space. So we are super, super excited to set this up. This is a pop-up station, and we hope that people will really benefit from this gentle nudge to put kindness in action. And as we are working with different schools and workplaces, we are super, super encouraged by the kind of positive reactions we got from users and also leaders. For example, one quote, comment I will never forget is from Julia. She's an executive director at Stanford. She said, over my 30 years at Stanford, I've taken part in dozens of personal growth programs, none compared to the Flourish program. And the reason is because, unlike others that are centered around the individual experience, the Flourish approach left me feeling a greater sense of belonging and more connected to community. So we believe that this should be the direction we are taking next for well-being and human flourishing in our society. And we are excited to be a pioneer in this space. So the last part I want to touch on really quickly is about AI. We've been talking about, mobile, it's like smartphone connected to us and kind of made people more isolated. Now, what about AI? This is a movie that I've watched like maybe at least 10 times. I really love her. Well, I was given 45 minutes, so we have another 2 minutes. So I will just briefly summarize that my thought on this is we recently published a paper at CHI, Computer-Human Interaction, about how robots or chatbots, they could help people better connect with each other. So lots of these scenarios is about how people connect with AI, but it doesn't have to be designed that way. And we actually found that if a robot poses deep and meaningful questions, it can actually encourage strangers in a waiting room to talk to each other, and they end up feeling happier after the conversation. So that's my thought about how AI can play a role when we think about human social interaction. Really, one thing we are trying at Flourish, now that everyone's working on AI right now, what we thought is really impactful is the AI can remember your social network or your Flourish buddies. We ask, for example, when we onboard people, we can ask people, who do you go to when you need a shoulder to cry on? Who do you share good news when you receive? Who do you go to when you share good news? And this kind of relationships and who do you want to build deeper connection with? And then for these different actions, we can remind people, hey, what about take a nature walk with Julie? right? How about, check on Jeremiah, how he's doing lately. So these are the kind of actions that we don't have to always connect with the AI. It could be the AI encourage us to connect with each other. So that's hopefully a direction that more people come to embrace instead of all building chatbots to, really encourage people to befriend AI. I would think that helping people connect with each other, that's the right way to go, because at the end of the day, I think a human connection is the most precious thing we have in our lives. So with that, I want to close this talk by sharing this quote that has always inspired me in my work at Flourish. Individuals can only truly flourish when they belong to supportive communities and in turn have the skills to nurture the well-being of those around them. So thank you, and I would love to hear your questions.